This is what you ask for, heavy is the crown. Got a black adult dragon and it's gonna swoop down. You go in the graveyard and then you run around. This is what you ask for. I don't know why when you go into metal voice it turns into like whisper. Hankrin' Furnail, back with Runehammer. Welcome to our furniture convention. It's actually not a furniture convention, as you may have guessed already, because of reading. This video is the final, eponymous, epic return of my most harangued, harassed, requested, and demanded video series, none other than Room Design. Wow. Really got to get put some curtains up or something. There's a terrible echo in here. Okay, anyway, Room Design is back. You guys know this series. This is where I break it down on an actual big encounter, it's usually pretty big, that will comprise sort of half of a session or even the whole center of a session if you're playing for just a few hours or 2 to 3 hours. So this is real deal too. This one is not hypothetical. All this you see right here was last Sunday with one of my kids groups. I have 2 kids groups, and this was their 8th session of hunting down none other than Nightscale, who is a canonical D&D dragon from the Forge of Fury, so which I think came out in like 96-ish or so. So check that module out. But anyways, in the first 4 sessions, they went into her lair and failed to defeat her. And in the second sort of, season, they had 4 more sessions and decided to actually just actively hunt her down rather than sort of just go in her lair and pick at her treasure hoard. And so the encounter that you're seeing right here, the room design that you're seeing right here is what I set up for their confrontation. Now, the first time that they met Nightscale over here, she was a young black dragon. Now she is an adult black dragon, and you're going to cruise right over to page 39 in your new monster manual, and there she is. 195 hit points, 19 armor class, a pretty stinking great breath weapon, if you can get it to recharge, that is, and this awesome spell, Vitriolic Sphere. Their swarm of insects is fantastic, and then the 3 rend attack, which you can swap thematically with a tail swipe. They're kind of one and the same. Pretty great. So you have a definitely hitting like a truck over here with your black dragon. Okay, so our heroes, we have them kind of posed over here. Let's get started on this room design. All right, let's start on the terrain first, how you're going to set this up. So right in your extreme foreground, we have our heroes, we have a wizard and a dragonborn, a halfling, and a big old orc guy. Now, almost at every entrance of one of my more designed rooms like this, I will put some kind of a little shanty, some kind of little blob of cover. And basically the heroes are assumed to be behind this cover when things get started. Now, when they pop out from this piece of cover, that's my cue that the room is live. So it lets them kind of still be in the scene, but not like, pop the trigger of the scene. So when they kind of come out from that opening little zone, I know they're like sort of gonna engage it, and it's a nice clear mechanic. So that's the first thing. Offer a little phone booth of cover as the intro space. Okay, second of all, you have this big rock outcrop here. You've got this kind of old cemetery. This is all part of the whole story arc that they did with a kind of a clear opening. And then I've done some different materials in here, kind of just to give them ideas maybe, or who knows, who knows what players are going to latch onto. But basically, here's the entrance, here's the cemetery area, and then there she is, bang, don't even waste any time. Nightscale is sitting on top of this rocky outcrop, brooding over this cemetery. In our story, Nightscale has employed an army of the dead. She's rising the dead to basically try to find this treasure that was stolen from her called the Heartseed. And so she's like brooding over this cemetery where she keeps on generating the dead. And that's basically all the clues that these players are going to get, except of course we have our blue over here, which means water. So she is lakeside, and if you're checking out that stat block like I know you is, because y'all dope, she has amphibious as a property. So all she needs to do when this goes south, and it probably will for her, you know, players are awesome, she can dive into the lake, disappear, and they lose their quarry. Okay, so that's going to be part of this room design. Okay, so there's the setup as far as the terrain. Now, what happens and how did I did it and how did I do it? How did I did it? How did I do it? How am I going to do it? How did I did it? And all that good stuff put together. Let's get into it. Okay, so our players come on in here. We'll move them sort of once, but oh my God, no, our wagon. So they come in here, and the first thing that you're going to do is obviously there's going to be some initiative going on. You're probably going to win it because Nightscale is badass. Come on up here. And we kind of, you know, I love having a lamp on a big mini like this because it kind of gives it its own spotlight. So sort of wherever the spotlight hit, her sort of sinister necromantic gaze would sort of shower out over all these graves. And just in the area that I felt like I could sort of feel it, see it, just kind of going on intuition a little bit. For each grave, I would hatch or rise the dead from the soil, right? So here I got 12. So you might notice back here, I would have this hidden from players, but I have a big reserve of the dead. So if I need 12 dead out, and they're in the graves that she's illuminating, here's 8, here's 11, and then maybe put an oddball over here. There's my first dead spawn. So every time that Nightscale is looking around, she's going to do dead spawn as long as I'm not just kind of out of miniatures. So I have maybe 30 zombies right here. I have more in my bin, but it gets a little crazy. So you'll know how big of a pile to keep at the ready. But wherever this light falls, as she's provoked in different ways, you're going to do dead spawn. And then on her turn, they're always going to close on players. And let's get to the actual mechanics, right? So these guys don't quite get that far, but they're moving. What I did for my dead so that it wouldn't clog up the game is just however many dead are basing you, or, you know, minis touching minis, that's 1 damage per. So if 4 minis are kind of butted up against your miniature, you just take 4 fixed damage. You can't even save against it. They don't roll to attack. There's no mechanics happening. It's just how many you're wading through. And obviously your warrior with your really high HP is going to want to say, well, I'm going to lure them all over here and stuff like that. So this is where we get into provocation. So everyone who's ever fought big dragons knows the art of doing it is all about provocation. So we can take our big warrior, and this is what always kind of happens. They sort of try to use some line of sight, get behind a boulder. They yell at them. She looks over at them. So I always make sure the head of the dragon is pointing at who's ever provoking. Her light is now falling on this area. So we've got the risen. I get 10. So the risen are coming up from all these little graves and old chests and crates and stuff like that. So here come all the dead again. There's a bunch more of them. Hooray. So there they are. They'll close in on him. He's going to take fixed damage and on. And so they're going to have someone who can spend their time getting rid of the dead, like knocking down the dead like bowling pins, making sure they don't overwhelm. Because remember, if you don't get rid of them, you're just taking another wave of fixed damage, of 1 damage per zombie, based on who's basing. Oh my God. All right. So then obviously provocation is essential with a big dragon because of her abilities. So you've got her breath weapon. You're going to be rolling to recharge her breath weapon. So 5 or 6. Do I get another breath weapon? Yes, I do. Awesome. So you're going to use that as often as you can. Just spam that breath weapon and get her airborne. So one thing I'll do is I'll kind of do this John right here. Will it work with the light on it? Will it? Yes. So she'll take wing like that. So yeah, if she can take wing, you're going to be 5 times more effective. And again, skilled players will know we need to damage her wings, chain her, tether her, harpoon her, something like that to get her on the ground. So that's what happened with my group. They managed to tear a big hole in her wing. So now that you're down on the ground, you've got really the sort of the room. And this is where if things are all generally in a sort of equilibrious state, you're going to come to a point that players are going to have trouble overcoming the wall of hit points, right? It's very hard to muster this much damage against a target this tough, and they will start to look deeper into the game. And now here's where the final pieces of your room design are going to play out. The first thing is knowing your terrain. Clever players are going to, I know I would, are going to notice big, tall, thin things like these. These guys do not look stable, right? So if a player is going to try to go out in a blaze of glory, for example, meaning a guaranteed death to get a maximum outcome. So anything that is a guaranteed blaze of glory is a guaranteed death, and then I give it a 5d12 output. So it's like, I'm going to pull this thing down and get crushed in the process. So like, big guy, come up here. I'm going to pull this thing down and get crushed in the process. I'm like, give me the strength roll. You're guaranteed to die, and you'll do 5d12. Oh, man. Styrofoam fell on my dragon, right? This guy is obliterated. He's out of the game. Again, this isn't necessarily abstracta. This is exactly what happened to the kids. They had one survivor at the end of this encounter. So you've got rickety pillars. You also have sort of, you're handing them like a giant flagpole lance, right? So that's there for a reason. It looks cool for a reason. Include that in your room design. Then if your dragon is really coming down to its last few hit points, you've always got the lake, and it starts heading for the lake. And this is where, again, they need to keep it from taking wing. They need to have it tethered or chained in some way. And that's your room. Your dragon, knowing your dragon is a big part of it. Wait to cast Vitriolic Sphere until the end of the battle. It's a shocking spell that really hits. Make sure to remember your legendary saves, so that if they're trying to do dominate monster, all this kind of stuff, mind control, whatever, that she's got these nice freebie saves that are going to basically just drain spell casts. Now, what about timers, you say? What about this, you say? Okay, so now we've got like the basics covered. The final piece is to put timers on things. And you can put a timer on when these dead rise up. So you're not just going, oh, anytime she swings, I get to... It's just gonna be it's just gonna be insane. So there we go. In 3 rounds, we're going to get another dead spawn. And really, this starts to be high tension. It's going to give you a lot. So in 3 rounds, she's going to turn, and her gaze, which is this kind of cool spotlight, is going to spawn 2d8 zombies right in this little cone, right? And then they can kind of start to steer her from side to side and all that kind of good stuff. Then finally, for the pièce de la résistance, and my props go out to Adam Smith from the Order of the Amber Die for this idea, but this is not the amber die, this is the antler die. So you as the GM, when the time comes, the intensity is right, you're gonna make an attack roll, one of her rend attacks, but I like to do it as a single 3-part attack as a tail swipe. You're going to roll that with this special die. It's bigger, it's heavier, it's cooler. A normal success here is gonna be a crit. A crit here is gonna be a narrative crit, which is basically gonna just blow the scene to pieces. And a fail here is just a normal success. And you're going to announce that to everybody, put it down and not use it, but then use it in the future. You could even do this, John, and say, I'm going to roll the antler die in this many rounds. Once again, setting up not only a room with a lot of parts and pieces and a badass bad guy, but with a sense of imminent ending. The ending is coming, and it's going to be a sort of blitz, or I'm going to run for it. And I might even be transparent with players about that. Like, she's going to flee the scene in this much time. So they're almost seeing into the future. And that is the Nightscale battle. I think that's the whole thing. So I guess I'll see you on the internet, you guys. Thanks for watching. I'm out of here. This is what you asked for. Usul no longer requires the weirding module. Yeah, but he's wearing one anyway. Okay, guys, room design, supplemental, controlling Nightscale. This is the after credits sequence for all the weird people who stayed in the theater. So you know your arrow die, you're going to use it. Once Nightscale takes wing, which is almost always going to happen in the beginning of the encounter, you have 2 options. One is, which direction does she move? Cha-cha! You roll it. I get kind of this way, so she's like flying this way. Right? Okay, that's one approach. Then I would like hover her, I don't know, she's like right here. Whatever. Another approach is to just give her a random location, this being the center of my map, using the method I indicated in my dice video. Cha-cha, right there. 3, so she would take wing and be in flight right here. And then I put a little something underneath her and have her right here. So that's how I would move Nightscale around before they bring her to the ground. And where she is, as you know, is the whole game. This is another area where having a lamp on her is handy because it kind of serves as her breath weapon cone. But where she winds up is a huge part of the encounter. You could even do this if you want to be a little bit merciful on your players for the dead. You could have your risen dead kind of just be like, you know, they got soil in their eyes, dude. Soil. The whole eye socket filled with topsoil, rich, mineral-rich topsoil with those little white nodules that make your flowers so brightly colored. But in this case, all it's doing is blinding a zombie. So you got this sort of arrow die once again. Which way is the herd going? And if they're not given direct stimuli, like a sound or a taunt or something like that, I don't know, a giant piece of raw meat, they will go in that direction. Then next round, which direction is the herd going? Ooh, I got kind of over here. And this provides you another dice-driven way for luck to be constantly swirling this encounter so that it isn't just a dragon on a mountain that we're going to kill. Like a good room design always has a lot of dynamic elements that are going to be dice-driven so that you do not have to make all these perilous decisions. And now I will return to my weirding training. Hankering's name is a killing word. Later.